You're watching EAC News. Thank you for joining us. Now for a look at news making international headlines this Monday, 17th January.
The shores of several Peruvian cities were flooded with seawater after tsunami was triggered by a massive volcanic eruption of Tonga on Saturday, 15th of January. A footage shows people walking with water up to their knees in the city of Pisco in southern Peru. Vehicles were also trapped in the flooded streets. Despite many coastal towns such as Barranca and Paracas evacuated bathers from the beaches as a safety precaution, the Peruvian Tsunami Warning Center has said the event did not generate a tsunami on the Peruvian coast. The captain of the Sopi de Barranco, Miguel Navarro, says the ports are definitely being closed as a precaution for the vessels. The closing of the ports means that they have raised red flags that indicates the bathers must not enter the sea. A satellite image has captured the volcanic eruption on Saturday as the explosion sent plumes of smoke into the air in about 19.5 kilometers above sea level. The sky over Tonga was darkened by the ash. The eruptions have triggered tsunami warnings across the Pacific, with the United States and Japan urging people on their Pacific coastlines to stay away from the shores. Australia has issued a marine tsunami warning for the New South Wales coastlines, Lord Howe Island and Norfolk Island, and has announced local beaches along the state's coast have been closed. A tsunami advisory was also issued in New Zealand. The Kingdom of Tonga doesn't often attract global attention, but a violent eruption of an underwater volcano on January 15 has spread shock waves quite literally around half the world.
A man who took 4 hostages at a synagogue in the suburbs of Dallas, Texas, has been identified by the FBI as British citizen Malik Faisal Akram, 44. The man who interrupted a morning service in the Colleyville on Saturday was shot and killed after a 10-hour standoff with police. All of the hostages at the congregation banned Israel was freed unharmed. U.S. President Joe Biden has called the hostage-taking an act of terror, and the UK has also condemned the attacks. British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has described it as an act of terrorism and anti-Semitism, adding, "We stand with US in defending the rights and freedoms of our citizens against those who spread hate." There is currently no indications that others were involved, the FBI in Dallas has confirmed. Police sources say that no explosive material were found on the attacker's body. A brother of Malik Faisal Akram has issued a statement apologizing to the victims and saying he had been suffering from mental health issues. Negotiators have spent hours talking to the assailants during the standoff. Among the hostages was the synagogue rabbi. One was released after 6 hours, with the other 3 being led to safety by police several hours later. The incident began at around 11 local time when police were called to the synagogue. People were evacuated from the area shortly after. The attackers has gained initial access to the synagogue during the service by claiming to be a homeless man.
Somalia's government spokesperson was wounded on Sunday, 16th January, in an explosion at a road junction set off by a suicide bomber in the capital Mogadishu, police and the National News Agency have reported. A witness at the scene has recalled that he saw government spokesman Mohammed Ibrahim Mualimu lying on the ground after the blast. A tuk-tuk driver carried Mualimu and placed him in a car in which he was rushed to the hospital. His right arm was injured. A lot of shrapnel had hit his body. At the scene of the blast, the remains of the suicide bomber were scattered on the ground close to Mualimu's 4-wheel drive vehicle, with his back windows blown off. The Al-Qaeda-linked Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab, in comments on its Al-Andalus radio station, has claimed responsibility for the attack on Mualimu, who was reported to be in a stable condition in hospital. Prime Minister Mohammed Hussein Roble, where Mualimu works, has called the bombing an odious terrorist attack. Nasra Bashir Ali, state media special correspondent in Roble's office, says that the bomber has actually targeted Mualimu as he was passing in his vehicle, and fortunately that his injuries were not life-threatening. Al-Shabaab frequently carries out gun and bomb attacks on Somali security and government targets, but also on civilians. It aims to topple the UN-backed central government and impose its own harsh interpretation of Islamic law. It also carries out attacks on African Union peacekeeping troops.